Welcome to the final episode of Season 25 of ECCB Connects. On today's program, we continue our discussion on some of the tools that are used to fight money laundering, an illegal event that involves disguising the source of funds obtained through criminal activity. Loxly Ricketts, former Deputy Executive Director at the Caribbean Financial Action Task Force, delves further into the concept of beneficial ownership and outlines the important role you play in helping to keep our financial system safe.
We're at the end of Season 25 of ECCB Connects. We thank you for staying connected with us during the season. We hope that you have gained some useful tips to help you manage your money wisely and build a solid financial future.
We'll be back in September to discuss more issues that are important to you and to share how the ECCB is helping to improve your well-being and that of the people of our currency union.
While we run break, stay connected with us on social media
at ECCB Connects.
Who we are, what we do, and how we serve you.
Loxly, thank you for joining us on ECCB Connects.
You're welcome, no problem at all.
In terms of the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union, how is the issue of beneficial ownership regulated?
So it would be difficult to give a global answer for the ECCU because each country is assessed separately and they may have slightly different mechanisms. What I can say is that the standards are applicable to everyone. Now, in that framework, the country has options. The country can choose to have a certain mechanism in the form of a registry, or they may use their FIU or something of a similar mechanism to a registry. And they must also utilize the company itself and give them the obligation to keep that beneficial ownership information. The idea behind the approach is to have multiple sources of the information so that you're likely to have more accurate information and a way of verifying the accuracy by checking it against different sources. So that in a nutshell is how the framework should work, what is termed as the multi-pronged approach. Now, before, it used to be optional to have multiple prongs. It used to be that you could just use one. You could just have the company keep it. You could just have the financial institutions keep it, or you could just have a registry keep it. But the standards have changed for the foreseeable future. It will be required that you have multiple agencies or multiple entities keeping this information for the benefits I just mentioned.
Now, Loxly, I'll be devil's advocate, if you will. And someone may say, I own a small boutique. I don't understand why knowing who funds ultimately belong to has anything to do with how I access my funds in the bank and why it even matters in the context of our financial system. But if you will, from your standpoint, explain to us why monitoring these activities helps to keep our financial system safe.
Thank you for that question. So I'll use my background as a prosecutor. Nobody knows what a criminal looks like. There is no way to say that because you have a small boutique that you are not facilitating criminal activity on behalf of someone else.
That is
and
true.
We, who are the persons in society, have a stake in making sure you are not committing or facilitating this criminal activity. So even though it may seem bothersome, it's protecting all of us and protecting you in your legitimate business as a boutique owner. Because the idea is to prevent or reduce the likelihood of organized crime. And money laundering is a significant part of facilitating organized criminal activity.
And of course, ultimately, if our region is flagged for having these kind of activities happening, then we have a greater difficulty in conducting transactions with the rest of the world.
You're quite right. So this ties into 2 points. One, why the financial institutions are required to conduct certain activities and checks, and then how failure to conduct those checks will impact the country as a whole, and then indirectly your pocket as an individual who owns the boutique. So complying with the request from the bank under the instructions from their supervisors, and that's important to know, the banks may seem like the villains, but they are not. The villain is the money launderer who forces the bank to apply those measures. And the ECCB as a supervisor is required to ensure that the bank is protecting the legitimate financial system. So it all connects, even though you just have a nice boutique on the corner.
Now, Loxly, finally, you've outlined a number of points, but I want you, if you would, to touch on how the customer actually experiences this regulation, this attempt by the supervisors and the financial institutions to actually keep our financial system safe. Because as you said, sometimes it may seem bothersome, the information that is being required. It may seem cumbersome and time consuming. But if you would, expound on that point for us.
I am also an ordinary customer in everyday life, so I experience the requests for information that are placed upon you. Now, when you walk into the bank may know who you are by name or familiarity if you're in a smaller society, and in some societies may have no idea whom you are whatsoever. They now have to approach the question of risk in order to determine, is this person somebody that it's safe to do business with? Is this the type of person who will have legitimate income and will have legitimate contributions to the economy and facilitate commercial activity for law-abiding citizens? Now, how you get to that point involves documentation. There is no difference here with vetting the babysitter that's going to stay with your child or any other kind of vetting that you do to protect your family. You don't just walk in and take any doctor you see, you find out about that doctor. And similarly, you also are being vetted by the financial institution to see if you are the right kind of client for them to facilitate your financial activities. So that just means producing some documents. And really, it sounds tedious, but in the end, you are just producing a few documents that you really ought to have on hand if you are running a sound business. So when you walk into the bank and you are attempting to open an account or carry out any particular transaction, and they ask you for certain documentation, the idea is that those documents are not inordinate, or that these documents are not things which you ordinarily would produce to engage in any vetting or any safe or secure financial transaction generally. It might be a bother to put it together, but the benefit is that you then have the guarantee of the bank and access to the bank's resources in the long term. What does that mean primarily for beneficial ownership? We need to have an idea of your entire corporate structure. And when I say entire, it sounds like a lot. But the truth is, many of the companies in the region are not necessarily complex. Most of the companies in our smaller economies are one-person enterprises. The same person who is the owner is the one shareholder who is the registered person on the articles of incorporation. So you would be expected to carry that document, for example. You would then also have to carry identification to prove that you are the same person on the article of incorporation that is standing in front of the bank teller here inside the bank. When you have done that, you may also get a few more questions about proving your source of income or showing where the funds come from. When I explain it that way, it seems to follow logically. But when you just see a long list of requirements, it seems tedious. But at the end of the day, thought has gone into what you're required to do and much understanding of what is best in order to ensure a legitimate and safe financial system.
Loxly, thank you for sharing that such insightful information with us and for opening our eyes as to how we as ordinary customers play a key role in keeping our financial system safe.
No problem at all. Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
And now for this week's financial tip.
Hi, I'm Alice Adams Francois from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Have a financial goal. If you don't know where you're going financially, you may end up somewhere you don't want to be, whether it's saving for a home, retirement, or a child's education. Set specific goals and prioritize.
We're at the end of this episode and season 25 of ECCB Connects. We hope that what we've shared has provided you with more insight about the ECCB as we work to serve you. Join us in September for fresh new episodes in season 26 and stay connected with us on social media during the break. ECCB Connects, who we are, what we do, and how we serve you.